Hello, my name is Mike Tift, and you're watching the very first episode of the Jesus Rock Review. And we're not going to do a review this time. We're going to do a topic that we're going to discuss. And we will do reviews in the future. But for now, I think we've got an interesting topic that we just want to talk about. And I've got a couple old friends of mine here with me to help me out with this. The first one here is Chris. He's a bandmate of mine. We've been playing together in Old Man Down for many years, and he's going to help us out with this discussion. And the other guy here is Bob, and Bob I have known since probably the late 90s. Bob and I met over message boards on the internet, and I've only actually met him in person one time. I was traveling down to Arkansas, and he met me on the way. But anyway, we've known each other for a really long time. What's unique with both of these guys is both of these guys are musicians, and they both play on worship teams, but they also both play in secular bands that go play in bars. And so basically, our topic for today, and probably the title of this video, is going to be worship team, bar band, or both. And that's the discussion we're going to have. So to get things started, I'll start off with you, Chris, and just tell us a bit about your background and what got you interested in playing music.
Well, thanks, Mike, and I'm looking forward to what we're going to be able to do with this new endeavor with Jesus Rock Review. As far as my background, I grew up listening to Elvis and 50s and 60s rock, which was my mom's kind of her genre, and so I guess I've always kind of had an interest in music, and but it wasn't until in my early 20s that I started actually playing an instrument, and I got a guitar, and somebody taught me a piece of a Metallica song, and from there on I was hooked, and I just started from, I think it was about end of my 19th year to into until I turned 21 and was able to go into and play, in the bars and stuff, that I I really just spent most of my time playing and practicing, and my life was pretty much wake up and play and go to work and go to bed so that I could get up and rinse and repeat. And what really pushed me was I went to a party one time, and I decided if I was going to learn to play, I needed a decent guitar. So I had just bought a Carvin Ultra V, and I was really proud of it. And I brought it to a like a jam party, and one of the guys there asked me if he could try playing it, and I said sure. And he picked it up and just ripped it up. I mean, just he, spent the next 20 minutes just playing like crazy, and then he handed back to me and said, "Yeah, nice guitar." After that, I was just like, I need to learn to play this thing. It sucks to have somebody else grab your guitar and show you up on your own instrument. So I really worked hard after that, and by the time I was in my 20s, I had formed a band with some friends, and we didn't play a lot in bars. I at that time I lived in Grand Marais, and so there wasn't many bars up there, and the bars that did do live music pretty much stuck with the same 3 or 4 bands that they knew, that were in the area and stuff. So it was really hard to get into the bars there and stuff. So it wasn't until I actually came here to the Iron Range that I started actually playing in bars and stuff. So But I mean, I've always, ever since I got to playing, that's what I love to do. It's the thing that drives me, is being able to play in a band and play the music I love. And, that feeling of having, being in the pocket with a group of people and making music it's the greatest thing in the world. So.
Okay. What about when did you first play in a worship team, and what got you there?
I didn't get I didn't get saved until I was 20. I think it was 25 or 26. And almost immediately, I mean, as soon as, how it is in churches, especially in small towns, as soon as you come in and they know you're able to play an instrument, then they want you to be on a worship team or something. And so so almost immediately I was playing guitar, and singing in worship teams. I didn't start leading until much later, when a friend of mine, he was at the time, it was somebody I just met, moved up to Grand Marais to plant a church, and he needed somebody to do worship leading, and so I started leading worship then for that. But it was mostly just myself, and it wasn't until later that I actually started working with teams.
Okay. All right. So Bob, same question for you. Tell us a bit about your background and what got you interested in playing music.
Well, like he said, thank you for having me on. My mother is the oldest of a bunch of kids, so I'm really close in age to my uncles. So I was around music all the time and just really dug it from a very early age. I picked up drums, I don't know, 12, 13 years old, and started playing drums in church at a time when that was kind of unheard of. It was just starting to come in as an option in churches. And I played there at that church for, I don't know, a few years. And then I kind of went off and played in a band for a while. And then when we moved to here, I was in my early 20s, and I started drumming for the church worship team here, and or the church at that time. Played with them all through the years, and then about 1988, I just felt a real draw to not play music, that it was like taking me over kind of a thing, trying to do both. So I just quit playing and started running sound for a traveling band. I did that for 3 years, and then a friend of mine had a Christian rock band that was traveling. They needed a bass player, so I picked up a bass and started playing bass with them. I played with them for 3 or 4 years, and then I started playing on a worship team for a little church. For some whatever reason, it just grew to where we were being called out. We ended up naming our band 1 year later, and we were playing all these youth, revivals and all those kind of things all over. And then at some point in the early 2000s, we switched churches, and about 3 months after that, my son and I both were asked to play in that worship team, and that's where I'm still at now. I'm still bass playing for them. It was probably I was playing in a lot of pickup bands on some secular type stuff, but nothing full time. And then in 2018, we put together Throwback. In 2019, we started playing out, and still going both places.
Okay. Well, you kind of handled the next question already, which was, what are you doing now? So I'll throw that over to Chris. Tell us about your current situation, what you're doing worship team wise, and also as far as secular bar band goes.
Sure. Well, the current band I'm with has gone through several different member changes and name changes and stuff like that. But for the most part, it's been myself and a guy named Rick Johnson. We just play around the area. We have two bands together right now. One that's just he and I. That's an acoustic band called Jellyfish that we do pretty much just he and I on acoustic guitars, and once in a while we have a guy join us that plays the cajon. But we try to keep that one pretty simple because we're old and we don't like carrying heavy equipment and all the setup stuff. So we try and keep that one as stripped down as possible. And then we have the other band, Dragon Ass, which is more of the 80s, 90s rock, straight up rock stuff that we do everything from local bars to full outdoor events. Right now we're working with a nightclub in Hibbing called the Do You that we're doing some fairly regular stuff with. We have our sound system set up at their club, and so we're working with them quite a bit. Yeah, so that's kind of where we're at for the moment and what's going on. What's going on with us? We're yeah, I guess that's it.
Okay. So tell me a bit though also about your current involvement with the worship team.
I'm currently at the Assembly of God church called Legacy Church, and they're in Mountain Iron, which is the next town over from us. And I lead we have four worship teams that I lead two of those a couple of times a month. And I'm helping with some of the leadership responsibilities with that. We just led this morning, so it's been a fun to get back into that, to having full worship teams again. It's a different animal working with folks in the church than it is working with the same band all the time.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, it's fun. I really enjoy it, and it's been very good. The people that I've been teamed with are good people. So
yeah. Well, and since Chris and I live in the same area, he also comes and does things over at my church once in a while. He'll fill in for our worship people, or fills in for me preaching sometimes too. So now, Bob, I want to ask you, what blesses you most about playing with the worship team?
Well, what always did bless me the most was when you could hear the people singing back at you. I mean, you've got electric guitar, you got drums, you got bass, and it's pushing out there, and yet you can hear them coming back singing at you, and the worship vibe that they're really worshiping and into it. Sadly, in my opinion, lately, in the last couple of years, especially since the whole COVID thing, the mentality has gotten more towards that Nirvana song, "Here we are, now entertain us." You don't really get that real strong vibe from them anymore. They're wanting to hear some in their face kind of music, it almost seems. So that's kind of a bummer. And so when it does happen, it's still really cool. Like this morning, they actually got into it pretty good. And that feels good. That gives you those goosebumps, if you will, lets you because you feed off audiences, even if it's just a congregation, it's still technically an audience, and you feed off them, they feed off of you, and when both are involved, it's really a special, sweet deal. But seems like the last couple of years, it's not really been like that. It's more of a, I'm not going to say a concert, but yet it's almost that what they expect atmosphere to me.
Yeah, I would second that. I agree. The one thing I tell all of the worship teams that I work with is that, when we practice, we practice for excellence. We try, and that's where we try and get it right and get it perfect, and go over stuff and really try and make it as clean as possible, with the intention of not looking great or sounding great or getting a backslap, but because we want to stay out of the way of what God wants to do on a Sunday morning. We don't want people distracted from what we're doing. We want them to be able to enter into worship and be able to, connect with God and leave different than they came in, because that's the goal. The goal of worship is that they have an encounter with God. So on Sunday morning, if we miss a chord, or if somebody comes in late or whatever, that's not what we're worried about. We're worried about wanting to be as unobtrusive to what God wants to do in that service as possible. And I think for me, that's when I feel like, I've done my job, or when I really get the most out of it, is when I can walk away at the end and go, people entered in, they were, hopefully, you can never tell what's going on in somebody's heart, but at least from what we can see outwardly, they entered into worship. They were, they were having an experience with God. And that's when it's great.
Mhm. Yeah. Okay, so now, what do you see as being your biggest advantage as a Christian? And Bob, I'll let you do this first. What do you see as your biggest advantage as a Christian to also playing in a secular band that plays bars and such?
That one's a toughie, because I don't know that being a Christian in that atmosphere is necessarily advantageous. It does help me in a way that, and us, because another member of Throwback is also a member of our worship team. One thing about, to me, it's almost a little bit backwards. You should give God everything, but in worship you have to hold back. You have to play down. When you're playing the secular, you can play to your ability. You can play full on. You can put it out there. One thing though, in our, and I'm also in a Assembly of God church, is where we play also, and attend. But it seems to me that any denomination, not just Assembly, but any denomination has a lot of man-made rules that are not biblically based. The Bible says this, but we can expound on that and make it a little better kind of theory. And, so then you get all these people that think, okay, he's beating me over the head with a Bible telling me I've got all these rules I have to follow. If we're in that atmosphere, we don't drink, we don't cuss, we don't do any of a lot of times what you see a bar band do, and they respect it. And they see that we are the same here and we are there, whether we're in the church, out on the street, or in that bar playing, we're still the same guys. We're still living it. I think much like Jesus when he ate with us. Tell you a funny story if we got a minute. My best friend and I were working together, and he was teasing me about it. and this actually, I think, gets into another one of your questions, so sorry. But he was saying, you know, something about it. And I said, well, Jesus did it, you know. He hung out with somebody. He goes, well, he preached to him. I go, whoa, 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 whoa. Where does it say that in the Bible? You know, maybe he did, maybe he didn't, or maybe he just lived in front of them. And I think that's the advantageous part of it all is you can be a Christian, you can be you in front of these people, and these people can say, hey, it's not a total rule-based deal where you have to, you know, have hair this long or a dress or this clothes or whatever. I'm wearing a Trans Am t-shirt right now, and that's what I wore to church this morning. You know, and I want, and I've wore it playing out. So I want them to see that it's not something that's so rule-based that you can't breathe.
Okay. So, Chris, same question for you. What do you see as being your biggest advantage as a Christian playing in secular bands that or secular band that plays bars?
Yeah, I kind of had the same reaction to that as Bob did. I don't know that there's a I don't know that I would consider there being any advantage to that in that way. I mean, to playing in a bar band. I think in a lot of ways there's more of a, you know, I mean, there's more of a I don't know whether standard or an expectation or as soon as somebody finds out that, you know, I'm the guy that we're working with at the Do You the other day, we were talking about some stuff and I mentioned I told him we did a New Year's gig there and I told him that I was going to leave after our set because I had to get up the next day and preach at Mike's church. I told him that I just told him I had to get up the next morning. And later on, he asked me what it was I had to do on New Year's Day, you know, that I had to get up early. And I told him, well, I'm a Assemblies licensed minister and I was preaching at a church. And he, you know, it's neat because he, you know, his response was, well, that's cool, you know, and stuff. And it opened up a conversation about how, you know, he wants to have a good reputation towards his club. And so there's things that, you know, he doesn't want to have there and certain times for there to be, you know, even like foul language and stuff, you know, if he has a dinner crowd, he doesn't want that, you know, that we'd have to work on how that works for, you know, the bands that we book and things like that. But it opens conversations in that way. But it also, I mean, I feel like for me, you know, there's an automatic stereotype that goes along with that. There's an automatic guardedness that goes on with people when they find out that, you know, you're a Christian, because of what Bob was talking about, you know, because there's this stereotype that there has to be, you know, all of these rules. If you're a Christian, you can't do this and you have to do that and you have to be like this. And, you know, I've had several people ask me, you know, more on the Christian side than on the secular side, how can you do this? You know, how do you justify that? And I just simply say, I don't feel like I have to justify it. I feel like I'm walking in what God has gifted me to do. And I'm in the places that he's planted me and I'm just doing the best I can with what's in front of me, which gets into another one of your questions. So I won't go too far with that.
Well, for both of you then, I guess kind of what I mean by advantage is the fact that as Christians, you will go play in bars puts you in a place that maybe a lot of Christians wouldn't even go into. So it puts you in these situations where you might have the opportunity to talk to people who don't know Jesus, you know, who aren't living for the Lord. And so that's what I mean by the advantage, because, you know, I mean, for a lot of Christians, they just sit in church and expect people to come to them. But you guys, because of the nature of what you do, you're going out into places where the sinners are, and if your goal, is to spread the gospel, whether by preaching it or living it, whatever the case may be, you're being put into a situation in a place where the fields should be ripe for harvest, right? I guess that's what I'm saying. So
Yeah. If you don't mind, Bob, can I take a shot at this?
Sure.
I'm gonna kind of probably jump a little bit into your second question and answering, or your next question and answering this, because this is really how I feel about this whole thing is that, God gives people gifts. He gives them abilities to do things and not do things, and passions about certain things, and other people passions about different things. And I've never been the kind of person that is comfortable, knocking on doors or standing on street corners or, doing those real kind of in your face, kind of confrontational evangelism type stuff. And, but I've never been like a drinker. I've never been a drug user. I've never been, sleeping around or any of those kinds of things that goes along with kind of what you would consider the bar mentality, or the things that people get hung up on and why they don't want to frequent bars. And so for me, the reason I go to a bar is either to listen to music or to play music. And, when I started doing this, I did it with the question that was asked to me and posed to me was, who do you have in your life that isn't a Christian? Who are the people in your life that you're fellowshipping with, or you're having relationship with, that aren't saved? And at the time, I looked around and I couldn't point to anybody. I really wasn't around secular people. I was so entrenched in the church that, I wouldn't have had a chance to have an effect on an unsaved life if I wanted to, unless they stumbled into the church. And so the way I found to be able to get into the lives of unchurched people was to join a band. And not only did that get me into the lives of the people in the band, before I even joined the band I'm with now, this was a different group. The way I now can look around and see that I have many people that are not church going people in my lives, and have relationship with them. And it's not that you can ask them, it's not a judgmental relationship. I'm not constantly, trying to pry them into the church or, do those kinds of things. I just, like you said, Bob, I'm just trying to live it out in front of them, the reality of what it means to have a relationship with Jesus Christ and live in the world around us. And I think that's the essence of it. The essence of it is that this is the mission field that I've been called to, if you want to put it in that vernacular, is that the place where I'm going to be able to relate most to lost people is in that situation, because of what we share in common. And I'm blessed in that I don't have a lot of the addictions or issues with being in a place like that many people have. And so that just allows me to be able to go there and not be tempted by many of the things that would probably tempt others. If that makes sense.
Yeah.
I might add, I'm the same way. I've never taken a drug before in my life, never tried them ever. So I can't relate to those people. But by living that life like that, I had a woman ask me, what you do. And I told her, play on the worship team and stuff, and my job stuff. But anyway, she kind of, oh, well, that's cool, and blew it off and left. But then last Friday, she sent me a message asking me if I would pray for her daughter. No, I didn't ask her what the deal was or nothing. I just said, yeah, will do. Sure. Great. So you're planting seeds.
Yeah. All right. So the last question, well, not really the last question, because I might have a surprise for you, but but anyway, the last
That
question
wasn't in
you
my contract.
the last
Yeah.
yeah. The last question you guys know about, as a Christian, have you ever felt like playing in a secular rock band has made you feel compromised, and how do you deal with that? And I'll go to you, Bob, first.
No. I mean, that's the short answer, but I mean, no, I've been asked it a few times. Do you think that's right, or do you feel like you're compromising something? And in my earlier years, with the way we were being taught as young Christians growing up in church, yeah, it would have been big time probably. But as I matured as a person and as a Christian, reading the Bible myself and learning, and the Holy Spirit, bringing these things to me, no. I mean, if I compromise my Christianity while amidst that situation, why, yes. But I mean, and I'm fallible, everyone is. But you strive to not do it. So far, we've been asked, there's 3 different venues we've been asked back numerous times. They've been super great. There's not been any kind of a situation that's resulted in anything that would be compromising, other than, in some people's eyes, perhaps, they would think other people being there drinking, but no.
Okay. Let me just throw this in there as a little added thing. Does being in that environment or atmosphere ever make you uncomfortable? And I'll just let you, Bob, follow up on that.
Not yet. I'm not saying it can't happen, but not yet. No.
Okay.
No. No.
Okay.
I mean, I can't even follow up with an example of anything. It's just been really, really, honestly, we talk about it over the years, but I've seen more nudity in church than I have in those other places, from girls sitting, in dresses on the front row, and I'm on a stage, not wearing anything under, and bending over at altars. I mean, it's funny, and we do joke about it, but it's the truth, and you sure hear a lot more complaining at church. So no, it's been really good, I think, so far.
Okay. All right, Chris, same to you.
I guess I would go at it from the other maybe the other direction and say that the answer is yes, and but who hasn't? At what, if it kind of comes to that thing of, you who have no sin cast the first stone. It's have I, in the 10 years that I've been, doing this out in bars, or 12 years, whatever it's been, have I been a part of things that, maybe I didn't plan, but I'm still not proud of, or things that I had to walk away from and go, I wish I had that back, or whatever. Yeah, absolutely. But I can say the same thing about being in the church. I can say the same thing about my job. I can say the same thing about, my relationships. It's my marriage. We all struggle with the times that we fall short. We all struggle with, in every situation, the things that we, compromise, or the times that we don't say something when we should have, and the times that we do say something when we should have kept our mouths shut. And so I don't see, what I'm doing. Maybe I'll put it this way. I have seen much more good come out of what I'm doing than I have bad.
Okay.
I feel like it is not only, like I said, allowed me access to people who aren't church people that I wouldn't have any other way, but also that it's allowed the gospel to come to people that wouldn't have received it any other way. And can I do better? Yep. Every day, I hope. But yeah, I think that that's the struggle that we face in all of our endeavors with the Lord, is that every day taking one step closer to Jesus, to being more like him every day, and not being ashamed to go to the throne of grace when you fall short.
Mhm.
It should be a daily thing for us, right? It should be something that we do every day. Our pastor today was talking about, the scripture that says, search me and know me,
Yeah.
We should be asking that every day, no matter what we're doing, right?
Yeah.
Because we're all susceptible to it, to falling short and being compromised. But I don't think that there's anything more compromising about this, about doing what, Bob and I do, and going to this, I'll call it a mission field. Because these people, that's the question I've asked several people that have tried to make me feel like what I was doing was somehow sinful. Is I've asked them the question, who's going to reach these people? Who's going to, if all of us have that attitude that this is just a den of iniquity and we should never cross the threshold, otherwise somehow, all of this garbage is going to get on us and we're somehow going to be besmirched because of what's going on around us, then how does that ever change? How do those people ever hear? We're supposed to carry the light, and the light shouldn't be afraid of the darkness. It should be the other way around, right? And I guess that's just the way I go into it. And I don't want to say that because if any of my friends that aren't churchgoers see this, I don't want to make it sound like, you're evil and I'm good and you're the darkness and I'm the light. I'm just saying that from that mentality. That's the mentality that you fight when you go into a bar, is that if you're a Christian, then you obviously think you're better than I am. And I don't, I'm just one blind beggar trying to help another blind beggar find the bread. And, why is that any different than somebody who goes halfway across the world to a Buddhist temple, or, to a communist country, or to any other place where there's need for the gospel? I just happen to be, this is my mission.
Yeah. Okay. And then same kind of follow-up, I guess, that I asked Bob. Do you ever feel uncomfortable in that situation, like are you?
You talking to me?
No, I was talking to Chris.
Oh, I'm sorry. I thought you were talking. I was like, I thought he answered that question. Say it again. I'm sorry.
Well, just if being in that situation for you, like sometimes some of the stuff we.
Oh, sure. Yeah. I mean, yeah. They've surprised me with some stuff. I mean, the first time, I think it was the first gig we played with, at the time, the name of the band was Kiss Me Like a Stranger, which, before you get too goofy about that, it's actually a quote from Gene Wilder it's a book he wrote, the title of a book he wrote. But the first gig I did with them, we did at a bar, and when I showed up there, they had these like silhouette curtains set up on either side of the stage, and had girls dancing behind these things, you know, in very risque ways. And I was, at that point, I was still kind of coming out of the, I'm not sure whether I'm okay doing this. You know, I mean, I'm taking a chance. You know, I'm not sure, you know, and if someone, and I had invited people from, you know, my family, my friends from the church or whatever to walk in. And if they would have, you know, if any of them would have showed up, they would have probably had some questions, you know, and that was just something that happened that they had talked to me about. Nobody had mentioned. And so, you know,
Yeah.
you just had to kind of go with it, you know, and you know, so yeah, there's stuff that, you know, there's, you know, we've been at festivals or stuff where girls are running around with no shirts on, and, you know, I mean, that stuff happens. But again, I just really want to bring it back to that thing of, where are you going to go? You know, unless you just decide you're going to live your life in your church, in your house, you're going to see stuff, you're going to be exposed to stuff, you're going to have to deal with that. And if you want people to be able to hear your message, you know, you can't just start, you know, throwing condemnation all over the place.
Yeah. Well, and you can't live in isolation. You know, I mean, something I've thought about a lot is that, you know, you pretty much can't live in this world without being exposed to a lot of stuff that's tempting or uncomfortable or whatever the case is. But as Christians, we're called, you know, to a renewing of the mind, you know, and taking thoughts into captivity, and you know, not letting this stuff, you know, overtake us. It's really up to us how we end up choosing to think about things, choosing to process things. You know, we can let it overcome us, or we can, you know, retrain our minds, essentially. I mean, that's what Romans 12:1-2 calls us to, is a retraining of our minds, you know. So yeah,
well, it's just always interesting to me. And again, I don't want to get on a soapbox here.
Yeah.
But it's always interesting to me that it seems like the people that, at least in my experience, that are really against this or have a lot of questions or concerns, you know, about what I'm doing, you know, have a very different answer when you ask them, well, what are you watching on TV for entertainment?
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
what are you, you know, what, you know, if I dig into your life a little bit, how close do you want to, you know, do you call it, or, you know, I mean, how are you doing with, you know, criticism of people? How are you doing with gossip? You know, when you start asking those questions, all of a sudden they get real quiet. And that doesn't justify me. It just comes back to that same thing of, we're all trying to make it through. We're all trying to do a little better. We're all trying to do what we feel like God's calling us to do, and doing the best we can. And we're going to mess it up. Yeah. And rather than trying to, you know, talk me out of doing what I feel like God's called me to do, you know, keep me accountable, you know, come and pray for me. You know, if you're really concerned and you don't want to go in, sit outside. Come and sit out. If you're the guy who likes to preach on the corner or knock on doors, why not come down and stand outside the club and talk to some of the people that come out on smoke break or something? You know, and there's a lot of ways that you could do this that would be supportive and not, you know, not condemning of it. And that's, I guess, to me, that's the main thing that I want to say is, you know, I invite people to come to the stuff, but I don't get after anybody because they don't come to the bar to see us play, because I don't know what their issues are. I don't know what their experience is. And I certainly don't want to tempt anybody in a way that would be, you know, that would be difficult for them.
Yeah.
But give me the same grace.
Go ahead.
Kind of in the same vein is, we make no secret that we're doing it. Our church knows that we are also Throwback or Happy. And a lot of our church people or congregation actually follow us to different places. So then you have that core group of people to also reach out and speak, because they're seeing them there, but they're not partaking per se of that stuff. Our pastor has never followed us anywhere, but he always jokes when somebody posts a video on Facebook, he'll always joke, look, worshipers by day, rockers by night, but he's okay with it, and we make no secret. We try not to hide, and these people support us in that way. Like Chris was just speaking, that you can get in there where you have more people than just us that's able to reach out to people. And I have seen it once where one of our guys did take a person aside and ended up leading them to Christ in the end. It took an hour or so, but so it happens. It's good stuff.
Okay, bonus question. And I'll let you do this first, Bob. Are there any songs that you're just not going to play that maybe some people would want, but you're just like, nah, I can't play that?
I mean, I'm sure there probably is. Nothing's coming to mind right off. Now, there is songs we refuse to play just because we hate them. Yeah, we get a lot, and I mean a lot, of requests for Cocaine. But, dude, that's like the most boring song in the history of the world. And I literally got better things to do than to go from one chord to the next, back and forth, 15 straight minutes, Yeah. But, and, what it represents, but it's never come up. So, I can't honestly just say. I'm sure I probably will never do Hair of the Dog or, a Steppenwolf song, that how it goes. But yeah, I it's never happened. So, but we do refuse to do boring songs.
Okay.
We did have someone once shout out a Hank Williams Jr. song. It's like, no.
Yeah. All right, Chris, how about you?
We pretty much all decided we're never going to do Freebird just because, out of principle, No, I mean, there's been stuff. At one point somebody wanted to do Baby Got Back for something, and I was like, yeah, I'm not doing that. But there's only been a few times when people have, they kind of know that I'm going to stay away from the super, sexually explicit stuff or whatever. But we do play, we play some AC/DC stuff. We play, some different things. So again, I kind of put that in the bucket of, if you're going to go to another culture, you need to know how to speak their language. And this is a part of speaking their language, is you got to be able to, if we go in and only play the songs we like, then we're not really there for, for entertainment. We're just there for ourselves. And if you want to get jobs, you gotta entertain the people, So, yeah, it hasn't come up very often. Very, 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 seldomly do I worry about that. We say a lot of things that we wouldn't say in church, and again, that's something that I don't say glibly, like it's no big deal. I have had to, even recently, I've had to really catch myself up and go, my mouth's been getting away from me more than it should. But again, I don't think that is because of going into bars and playing music. I think that's a heart condition, and it has to do with a lot more factors. And how it gets fixed is by me going to God and saying, search, what is this about? Why am I all of a sudden so angry? Or why am I so easily, why is this reaction coming from me? And, I don't think I'm the only one. Maybe I am. Maybe you guys don't struggle with that stuff, but yeah, that's where it's at for me.
Okay. Second bonus question.
How many bonus questions do you get, Tiff?
What's the deal here?
Mackerel.
We're getting a contract.
What, do I get a bonus question? When do I get to ask you a question?
You can ask me a question. Okay. So we'll start with Bob again. From the past, let's just say from the past year, a favorite worship song that you really love to play, and a favorite song that you love to play out at the bar.
I think one of my favorite worship songs is Egypt. We just started playing it probably 3 or 4 months ago. It's just, to me, it's powerful. It speaks to me, that you're coming out of Egypt. It's got a good vibe to it anyway, which, that's how music touches you in a lot of ways. But I just really like that song. And then one other one that's probably pretty equal to it is Anchor. I really like playing Anchor. And again, it's just that strong, relationship with God kind of song. And it touches me, and I just shut my eyes and play, and really feel it. And I like that. As far as the secular, I don't know. I like a lot of them.
And I just mean something that's really fun to play when you're out there playing it,
There's a lot of them. We do a lot of blues. Those are fun. Riding the Storm Out by REO, I kind of enjoy playing that one. We do play Freebird, Chris, but here 2 weeks ago we were playing it. Yeah. Well, everybody wants it, but we were playing it, and man, I had to pee like right now. I was hurt. Man, I had to pee. And our lead guitarist sees on his tablet, where he reads the words, that we've got time to fill. So he's just soloing. And I'm sitting there, undoing my pants and playing. So that wasn't so fun to play.
That's why you always keep a picture on stage.
Yeah. But as soon as that song hit its last note, buddy, I was dropping that bass guitar and heading to the toilet. But just those kind of songs, though. I wish we could play some Head East songs, because I've always loved Head East, but our vocalists really can't get to that John Schlitt vocal range.
Oh yeah, who can sing that stuff? It's just crazy.
Yeah. But there's a lot of similars. It's fun.
Okay. How about you, Chris? Favorite worship song, favorite bar song?
Well, my current favorite worship song, I played at the open mic you had last night. It's called Firm Foundation. And the version I like is by a group called Maverick City. But I really like, I think it's just such a clear declaration of faith. And that's the kind of stuff I like. I like worship songs that are real declarative and like, this is what our faith is, and this is what we believe, and this is, how we feel about the Lord and stuff like that. So I really like those. Pretty much anything by Corey Asbury, you could throw on my list. I love his stuff. Reckless Love is like, I could just, I think that's probably, we're going to play that for about 1,000,000 years in heaven when we get there. As far as, but I also really I still with worship songs, I still really get into a lot of like, I think the last time, not this Sunday, but the last Sunday I did, Lord, I Give You My Heart, which is, you know, again, one of those just, you know, you can't go wrong with that, you know, and that kind of stuff. So I still really love the older, you know, even going back to like some of the Maranatha stuff and you know, and that I really enjoy that stuff. That's because to me, you know, in worship, it's more about what the, you know, what you're saying, what you're singing than it is so much about the music. Not that I don't like the music too, but just anything that has deep meaning to it really resonates with me. The secular songs I like, I'm a huge Judas Priest fan. I've been a Priest fan since I could probably listen to music. I've loved their stuff, and so I love to play You Got Another Thing Coming and Living After Midnight. I love those songs, especially, and I think this is a big part of it too, is it really all depends on the crowd reaction, you know, because it really doesn't matter what you're playing. If the crowd is reacting and responding to it and they're into it and they're dancing or they're, you know, they're really having a good time, then it's fun. I mean, it almost doesn't matter what you're playing as long as they're really into it, because that's fun. And the opposite is true. We can play nothing but Judas Priest and I'd enjoy it, but if nobody else is into it, it's, you know, I might as well be in my basement playing, you know. So I think that's, and there's an aspect of that with worship too. It's like, if, you know, I mean, you can get into a place in worship where you're just meeting with the Lord yourself and what happens around you isn't important. But if you're leading worship, you really don't, at least for me, I don't feel like I'm doing my job if people aren't responding. If they're not entering in, then I'm like going, okay, God, what am I doing wrong? Because I know it's not you, you know, anybody who, you know, taste and see that the Lord is good, man. I mean, if they get a taste of your spirit, then they're going to want more. So what am I not doing? You know, what do I need to do different to get that thing happening? So I think that's a big part of it for me is, you know, on the secular side is just seeing people having a good time and really enjoying themselves, and on the worship side is seeing people experiencing the presence of the Lord and you know, being changed and walking away from it different. That's, at that point, I don't care what we're playing.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Well, that's good. Do you have a question you want to ask me?
So what's next for Jesus Rock Review?
I don't know. We got to talk about that. We got to figure it out. But anyway, I thought this was a subject that would be interesting to a lot of people who might watch, just because, you know, a lot of them are musicians themselves, and you know, some of them may be in the same situation where they play worship and they play, you know, some secular bar band stuff. So I just thought this would be a good topic to discuss, and might be a lot of people who can relate to what you guys are talking about. And it was a good excuse for me to introduce you guys to each other, because you both do this kind of thing.
What do you think, as a person, as the third person in this group, what do you think from the outside looking at two people that do both?
Well, I guess I will say this. For me, it's so, like, you know, I'll go see Chris play and his band play from time to time at the bars, and I can't do that with you because you live too far away, but 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 I'll go there, and most of the time it's not bad, but I admit I've been there a few times where I got kind of uncomfortable because it just, the drinking got so heavy and the sleazy behavior got so bad that it made me kind of uncomfortable. But at the same time,
And that was just the band, right?
yeah. Okay. No, but even though I recognize that, I still, I didn't want to just sit in judgment of that situation. That I think that's part of why I wanted to do this episode, because I wanted to say, I know both you guys, and I know that you're both solid Christian people, and I'm not going to think that you wouldn't do this, or that you would do this kind of thing unless there was good reason for you to do it, and so that's really why I wanted to have the discussion, and this could relate to so many things, I mean, because we know back, in the 80s and 70s, 80s, when Christian rock first started coming out, a lot of the church came against that, and judged it and wanted to shut it down, and yet people were blessed through that. And and the same thing could be happening here, where you guys will go out and play in these environments where a lot of Christians don't want to go. And that's what Jesus did. Jesus went into places where the Pharisees didn't want to go. They just sat in judgment while Jesus went and talked and ate and hung out with sinners. And, those were the people who needed him. And so if you guys can go into these environments and, help build relationships with people who need to hear about Jesus, I'm not going to get in the way of that, especially if it produces fruit. And I don't doubt that at times it does. So, yeah.
I just want to throw one more thing out there, in just in case I come off sounding like, oh, this is a big sacrifice and I'm doing my godly duty. I love it.
Oh,
I
yeah.
have,
I know.
it's fun. I mean, I wouldn't deny that at all. I mean, the number one reason I do it is because I enjoy it. I love it. I have a great time with it. And as soon as it stops being fun, I'll probably stop doing it,
Yeah. But you
Right
know
on,
what?
Right on.
But there's a plus, but I guess maybe there's the answer to your advantage question. The advantage to being a believer is I get to do something I really love doing, and I get to fulfill the call of God on my life.
Yeah.
Right.
But you know what? I wouldn't do what I do either if I didn't enjoy it. I mean, I have fun. I mean, that may sound weird, but writing sermons every week and going and doing what I do at the church, I enjoy that. I have fun doing that. I get to build relationships with a lot of people, and it's a lot of work, but I love it. I can't picture myself doing anything else. And, so I think it's good when people follow their calling, whether it's what I'm doing with the church or whether it's what you guys do in the church and out of the church. And I got to do stuff out of the church too. I can't sit in the church and, tell people about, well, I can tell the people, but I'm preaching to the choir. I got to get out of the church to be able to tell people who don't already know, most of the time anyway. So yeah, that's that. But I don't know what's next. We'll figure that out. I know Chris and I, we're not going to always do this stuff over Zoom. Chris and I are probably going to do some stuff that we'll film in person. And we're just going to kind of come up with some ideas, but definitely at times I'm going to still want to get on the Zoom and get Bob in here too. And so
it would be fun I think it would be fun as part of one of the some of the things that we do it is to review some secular stuff too. I mean,
oh yeah,
like, get the three of us on and talk about, these are some songs we play and, why and how they go over. And I mean, even I think there's a case to be made with some of them that, I mean, how how they, maybe from a sideways, they refer back to the gospel or to Jesus, or, I mean,
Sure. Yeah,
so
absolutely.
yeah,
So,
I've really
That'd be
enjoyed
good.
this. Thanks, Bob. It's good to meet you, and God bless you in all you do. And I hope He gives you lots of opportunities.
Yeah. I appreciate getting to meet you and being a part of this. And I look forward to being a part of some more later. And like I say, I got to watch you some on some of the videos, and good stuff. I like it.
And just a little bit about these guys real quick. Of course, Chris, him and I have this band Old Man Down together, and we're working on a CD. It'll come out eventually. And Bob and I have actually written some stories together. Bob wrote a book. What was the book called again? Your book, your Chickenisms?
From the Mike Bob, I think.
Okay. Anyway, yeah.
Chickenisms.
Bob writes these little stories about chickens that are supposed to give us some wisdom, and in the process of all that, Bob and I actually wrote a couple stories together, and I have a book called Wisdom from My Wall, and it's actually got those stories in there. So I've done things creatively with both these guys, and consider them good friends. And we are running out of time, so we will wrap this up. And
Thanks for the shameless plug.
oh yeah, throwback.
Yeah, nobody told me I could have a banner. What was up with it, man? What was? I missed an
Gotta sell merch.
opportunity. I think we have
Gotta
to
sell that
re-record.
merch.
Yeah, you got to put your big dragon ass thing up there behind you. Yeah. But, anyway, yeah. So we'll wrap it up. We'll say goodbye to everybody who's watching. And until next time, this is the Jesus Rock Review saying keep on rocking with Jesus. See you.
Thank you.